I'm Milton from TeamFFLEX, and welcome back to the Iron Palace. This is a show I teach you how you can get a palace built out of your games. We're talking about your training and everything else on this show. We'll cover all kinds of stuff. Today we're going to talk specifically about ranges of motion and what matters, what doesn't, what you need to know to get the absolute best results when it comes to your training. Please make sure you do me a favor, you subscribe to this channel and you share this video. Give me a thumbs up, a comment maybe. Let me know what you think. I'm doing all these videos for you and I'm doing them all for free, alright? Appreciate you being here, appreciate you watching. Let's talk a little bit about range of motion. So, first things first, what am I talking about when I'm talking about range of motion, right? Well, when you're doing any exercise, there is a range of motion that there is the basic movement taking place, right? So we're talking about on a squat, how far you squat down before you stand back up. On a deadlift, how much you hinge over before you stand back up. So on and so forth. With curls, how much extension you get before you close the gap. Kickbacks for ladies, everything's in there, okay? It's basically the amount of range that you are taking your body through, or your body part, or the muscle, if we really want to get anatomical, through that specific range of motion, okay? And so that's happening on every single exercise you do, whether or not you have conscious effort to make an effect on the actual range of motion. Now, we're talking about range of motion today because I know a lot of people get in their head that they're supposed to have some specific type of range of motion. How many of you have ever been told that you should squat ass to grass? Meaning that if you don't squat all the way down until your butt's basically touching the floor, you're doing it wrong, right? That's a common misconception. It's actually not a great way to squat for most people. Can some people do it? Yeah. But what are some limiting factors for pretty much most people, right? Well, here's the thing that comes with range of motion. I know from working with thousands and thousands of people over the years, coaching in person and online, that there is nobody that has the exact anatomical bone structure as anyone else. And that, believe it or not, is partial to what actually dictates range of motion. Now, guess what else does? Muscle structure. And when I know this, muscle structure is also not the same as anybody else. Guess what else is? Joints and, other hip sockets, shoulder sockets, these types of structures are, guess what? Not the same. So when we look at two people, even though they might look the same on the outside, maybe they're two bodybuilders, two bikini competitors, whatever, they got different things going on internally. They have a different skeletal, different muscle, different joint and bone structure than anyone else. And so with that, guess what happens? Now the whole kind of, you have to squat ass to grass or it's not a squat, doesn't have an effect. It doesn't make any sense. It actually doesn't correlate over if we take into individual differences, okay? And so when we're talking about range of motion, what we're really talking about is your optimal range of motion. How do you find your optimal range of motion? And for everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. And let me tell you some ways you can figure this out for yourself. So optimal range of motion really does boil down to all those things we just talked about that are basically your genetics in a lot of ways, right? They're just built into you. You can't really change how much your bones grow, what kind of joint structures you have, and so on and so forth. You can change your muscle structure, but actually not the shape, the insertion points, and all that of the muscle. You're just going to be building it, making it stronger, and so forth, but you're actually not changing the anatomical structure of that muscle. Now, one thing we didn't talk about that you actually can heavily influence is your own mobility. Say it with me. Mobility. Your own mobility, right? That's going to be able to make a difference. You can actually get better mobility, better flexibility, so on and so forth, which will help you with ranges of motion, but we still can't change any of these other factors, okay? So I'll tell you straight up. Here's a good example. The squat, we've already talked about it a little bit, right? Most people have heard that. You got to squat really deep. You got to squat really low or you're not getting the benefit. Well, in reality, a lot of people don't actually have the actual bone structures to be able to do that, right? There's people with shallow hip sockets, meaning that basically their femoral head of their leg is actually out here more, okay? So it's a shallow socket. Basically, it's not a very deep socket, so it can move in a vast range of motion, okay? And I've done some videos on this. We got cool stuff coming up in the future that you really want to pay attention to, where I'm going to talk more about this kind of stuff. But basically, you know, they got a shallower hip socket, so they can squat really low. These are your best Olympic lifters, okay? The real Olympic lifters I'm talking about. They have very shallow hip sockets, so they can squat very, very low and keep a good posture. But most people, a lot of people, especially depending on your culture and your genes and where you're from in the world, your ancestral roots, in other words, some people got deep hip sockets, meaning that literally your pelvis is encapsulating that femoral head. And so what happens is now you can squat, but what instead happens is your back rounds, right? And this is what people get, the back, the tucking under, the butt wink, you know, the shitting dog kind of look is what I always call it, where basically your lower back is rounding under, your pelvis is coming under your body, and guess what that's doing? That's going to jack your spine up. That's going to cause you so many problems. You're loading weight, squatting ass to grass because you think you have to, but you're rounding your back to do it. You're going to have serious back issues. You might even need back surgery at some point if you continue habits like that, right? So these are things you want to take into consideration. Would I ever coach someone, hey, you got this real deep, I'm seeing your background, you should continue to go deeper and deeper because eventually it'll get better? No, because I would injure that client. That client would get injured because of my advice at that point. So I would actually have them squat more shallow. Squat to a point where they're not gonna round their back. Squat until we have a good spinal position, legs are loaded, and come up through it. Ass to grass squats, it's a joke, okay? You don't need it, everybody. You need to work with your anatomy and what your body does. If you have perfect range of motion, ass to grass, awesome, train that way. If you don't, train where you're at, and then maybe look at, okay, mobility and things like that maybe need to be improved, but could it actually just be your joint and muscle structure, your actual bone structure, right, that's preventing you from doing these things? And if that's the case, I'm going to tell you straight up, fam, you're not going to change it. So work with what you got. Work with what you got, and you're still going to be able to get great, great results. We talk specifically about squats and things like that, but this actually correlates to every lift. There is no specific general range of motion rule that someone can give you. And if there's a coach out there telling you that, if you got a trainer or somebody like that telling you that, I would put a red flag up on that, because there's no generic amount of range of motion we should see based on the fact that we know everybody has individual difference, right? For example, guys doing bench press, things like that. There's always a debate about, should the bar come down to your chest? Should the bar come down just about 2 inches above the chest? Should you go sternum? Should you go lower? It's going to be different for every damn person doing it, right? What's going to be most optimal is not the generic textbook thing of like, oh, bring the bar down till it hits your sternum, press up. That's not everybody. That's going to be different. Depending on the amount of chest mass you have and the amount of other muscles you have and the mobility and everything else, it's going to change your range of motion. That's actually going to be beneficial versus what's hurting you, right? Because that's the thing that we really should be talking about, is the fact that if you over-mobilize these things, if you do too much, if you go out of patterns that are not good for you, trying to force movements, you're not going to be helping yourself. You're going to get worse results, and you're probably going to get injured. And this goes for every lift, okay? Hyperextending your arms when you're doing curls and things like that is not going to serve your elbow joints at some point because you think you have to go all the way down. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you just need to go as low as it takes for that muscle to get fully stretched and then fully loaded, right? Because that's all we're doing. Let's not forget what we're doing in the gym, ladies and gents. We are training every part of our body. We're training for strength. We're training for muscle, right? We're training to build hypertrophy, in other words, and so on and so forth. We're actually always training with what? Tension. We're training with tension on muscles to elicit a response, whether it be to get stronger or get bigger or build more muscle or all of those, okay? It's going to be the thing we do, and that's through tension. Well, when we take tension off by putting tension on other muscles, on joints and on bones and doing things like that by going out of ranges of motion, well, now we're actually just taxing those things and not the muscle. So the end result's going to be, guess what? Your muscles are not as strong. They're not as has developed, you're actually weaker, you look worse, and you feel like shit because you probably got a lot of aches and pains and joint problems and tears, and you'll get to places where you'll have to have surgeries and things like that. This is how people get there, is because they think about this form in the wrong way, the range of motion, right? So I've kind of talked about all the red flags, all the issues so far. Don't follow the textbook rules of the generic shit that even trainers want to tell you about your form. So many trainers just follow what the fucking books say, and they have no idea how to actually look at a person's anatomy. They're looking at a person's body in motion and see what's working and see what's not, okay? So what you got to do right here, I'm going to tell you how you get through all this, how you figure this out. Never do anything that cause pain, period. That's it. Don't do movements that cause you pain. And I'm not talking about muscular pain. If you're fucking working your chest real hard or working your glutes real hard and they're burning, they're hurting, that's because you're training the muscle. That's what we want. But if you go to a chest day and you leave with a clicking, aching shoulder, you might look at what's going on there. If you go squat or deadlift and your back kills you for the next week, you should probably quit doing that and figure out what's going on there. If you do any movements in the gym and it's causing you a actual pain, whether it be acute or chronic, you need to address it. You need to figure out what's going on with that. And I'll tell you, 99% of the time, it's people that are training incorrectly, okay? They either don't have the right ranges of motion, so they're not doing it because of mobility, or they're trying to force movements and ranges of motion that are not actually natural for them. And when you do this stuff, you're going to get bad results, okay? You're going to have serious problems that arise from trying to train out of ranges of motion and stuff, right? When we talk about your spine, the analogy I've always used, and I hope if anybody's watching this, if you got a paper clip or something near you, fucking do this, okay? Get a paper clip and bend it this way, bend it that way, bend it this way, bend it that way. It'll do that for a while. You might be able to do it 100, 300, I don't know, maybe I've never done it till it broke, but guess what? Eventually it will break. There's no doubt. If you continue to bend a paperclip back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, it will break. Guess what your spine does, ladies and gents? When you are squatting and you're getting butt wink, when you are deadlifting, your back's rounded and straightening out at the top, when you're doing any movement wrong, you can do it, absolutely, and you might feel like a badass. You might feel like a badass you squatted ass to grass with a heavy weight. Well, you're also going to feel like a fucking, your ass is going to hurt, your back's going to hurt, you're going to have a lot of problems in your future, not be able to do any of that shit when you blow yourself out. And this goes for every joint and every part of your body. This is something you got to be aware of. Training is about tension. Training is about muscle tension to elicit a response from the body to build more muscle, to get stronger, and so on and so forth. It is not about having egos and trying to lift shit with your bones. Okay? You got to think about this in the sense of range of motion is totally individual. You can work on your ranges of motion a little bit, but you should never force them. Don't do things that cause pain. If you stop doing things that cause pain, it's going to save you so many problems, so many injuries, so many visits to the hospital, the doctor, and some of you, it'll save you surgeries that you have to have later in life because of the damage you did, okay? I'm going to tell you straight up, it is beneficial to not train with pain. You should not have to train with pain, alright? And I'll tell you what, there's been times in my life where me, Coach Ryan, the guy telling you all this shit, has ignored signs of this shit, and it has caused me severe problems for years and years that I had to work out of my body. Anybody that has had any injuries, they know that every time, guess what? You deserved your pain, alright? Unless you were in a freak accident and you fucking caused some problem and something happened there and then you went and trained, well, yeah, it's going to hurt. But most of the time, people don't have that. Most of the time, people are like, oh, my shoulder hurts. And then 3 months later, the shoulder's still hurting, they haven't addressed it, and now it's a serious problem, okay? This is what you got to do with your body, ladies and gents. You got to look at your body as it's giving you a sign. Something is wrong. Something is not right. Something you're doing is not suiting it. Something you're doing is not okay. That's what your body's saying when it's giving you pain. It is your body trying to say, hey, you know what, right, dude, that shoulder's been hurting, man. Stop doing the shit you're doing. Hey, your back hurts. Stop doing that shit. What's going on here? Quit doing it. And oftentimes you need to address it from a few angles. You need to figure out what you're doing to cause the pain and stop doing that right out the gate. Quit doing the stuff that causes pain. Then figure out if your movement patterns are the problem. Are you actually training totally wrong? Are you training with a bad form? What's going on here? Are you doing things that are causing the pain? And I guarantee you, when you stop doing the things that cause the pain, you won't have the pain. And that's how you know you've been doing the wrong form. Number 3, you also got to look at your mobility. Look at what's going on with that. Is a mobility a thing that's causing you to not be able to do the form? A lot of times it is. But a lot of times it's also the fact that you don't understand the goal of your exercise. You don't understand what you're trying to do or what muscles muscles you're trying to turn on. You think it's just about doing reps in the gym, okay? If you couple these things together, you're going to be able to figure out what the problem is. You're going to be able to get far better results, train a lot harder, get way further, way faster, and you'll be able to just get your gains, ladies and gents. Get where you want to be, and that's the goal, right? And you'll be able to prevent injury, which is huge. You'll be able to, for sure, mitigate the possibilities of getting injured if you know how to train with the proper range of motion for yourself, the proper form for yourself, and with the right tension. Tension is everything. I would tell all of you out there, if you are experiencing problems, if you're experiencing pains, first things first, stop doing any exercise that causes pain. Don't do it again if it causes pain. You can test it every few weeks. If it hurts, quit doing it. And I mean after one rep of pain, stop. Don't do it again. Don't try to power through it. Don't grind through it. It's not normal. It is a sign from your body saying, hey, you're getting hurt. Stop doing it. If you want to get the best results, you want to do this long term, stop doing the stuff, okay? And then, also, know that tension is king over weights. Tension is everything. You can curl 5-pound dumbbells. You dudes out there trying to get big arms, you can curl 5-pound dumbbells with insane amounts of tension and focus and get better results than curl 130. And if you want to challenge me on that shit, I fucking dare you, because I know it's true. I coached thousands and thousands of people over the years. I know what gets people results, okay? And I've also looked at the timeline from hundreds and hundreds of years for people that have been doing stuff, and it's always coming down to tension, overload all the time. Load is just another way to bring in more tension. Speaking of, ladies and gents, there just might be the fact that you don't know what exercises you should be doing, how to do them, or anything else. And if that's you, if you're out there and you're trying to optimize your movement patterns, you want to know what the best exercises are for your goals and how to go about them, what tempos, what reps, what sets, go to my website right now, TeamFFLEX.com, subscribe to the free trial, and me or one of my coaches, we will help set you up. This is totally free. There is no charge. You're not putting your information in. I can't charge you a dime if I wanted to, and I wouldn't. It's totally free for you. We just want to do it as value add. We want to do it as give back. I'm so sick and tired of seeing people get injured, people dealing with chronic problems, pains, all this stuff. We want to eliminate that. And so go to my website right now, TeamFFLEX.com, and we will help you get set up with what needs to be done to help you, even down to the mobility exercises you should be doing. All right? That's all stuff we can do for you. TeamFFLEX.com. Pop-up comes up, put your email in, and you'll be able to get in there. I hope otherwise today, anybody watching, you got something out of this. This was helpful, something you can understand. Ranges of motion are all different. You should never train with pain, and some stuff you might need to address if you're getting in that spot. Alright, thanks for watching the Iron Palace. I'm Ryan Milton from TeamFFLEX. I will be back on here tomorrow for First Call Outs, my show dedicated towards all you competitors out there. We're going to teach you how to get in that first call out. Thank you for watching. Coach Ryan is out.